In most major cities, around the world, regulators and rideshare apps are basically locked in this perpetual state of legal warfare.
Yeah.
Like you look at places like London or New York, right?
Right. It's just a constant tug of war.
Exactly. It's the tech disruptors trying to bypass the rules versus local governments trying to shut them down.
Ah.
But then you step out of the terminal in Dubai in 2026, and the entire paradigm just completely flips.
It really does. I mean, the government there hasn't banned the tech companies. They haven't even just, tolerated them.
No, they've literally embedded themselves directly into the code of the apps you're using. We're looking at a transport landscape that has completely bypassed the old analog world of raising your hand on a curb.
Right. It's been replaced with this highly integrated digital ecosystem. It is the absolute definition of a hyper-digital transit grid.
And the pressure testing on this grid is, frankly, immense.
Oh, absolutely. Our sources point out that Dubai welcomes over 16 million tourists a year. And, we aren't just talking about a big number here.
Right.
We are talking about a massive recurring cognitive load on the city's infrastructure. You have millions of people who do not understand the local geography.
Yeah, and they don't hold the local currency either.
Exactly. And they are operating on zero sleep, right? All demanding immediate, frictionless transport the very second they clear customs.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to another deep dive. We've got a really comprehensive new guide to Dubai's transport market in front of us, and our mission for you today is pretty simple.
We want to cut through the digital noise.
Yes, exactly. The digital noise of the 2026 to 2027 Dubai taxi app ecosystem. We are looking at 8 different competing platforms today.
8. It's a lot to navigate.
It is, and we want you to understand the underlying mechanics of how they work, why they exist, and most importantly, how you can manipulate this ecosystem to move through the city efficiently.
Right, without getting trapped by, legacy banking fees or this crazy dynamic surge algorithms.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because if you have a market handling those 16 million tourists, plus a massive resident population, you need heavy hitters to move them around.
You really do. And to really grasp how to navigate this, we have to look at the foundational architecture of a market first.
Right.
The baseline is basically controlled by 2 distinct philosophies on how to capture a user. You have the localized high-frequency approach, and you have the global low-friction approach.
The 2 titans dominating the streets right now are Careem and Uber. And I want to start with Careem, actually.
Sure.
Our sources describe it as the Middle East's homegrown everything app. And when they say everything, I mean, they literally mean everything.
It's like a digital Swiss Army knife.
Exactly. You are using Careem to book an economy ride, sure. But you're also using it for food delivery, grocery runs, renting bikes, and even managing your money through Careem Pay.
And the underlying business model here is critical to understand. Careem isn't just offering a suite of services, right? They are building this closed-loop ecosystem designed to drive customer churn to 0.
Because in the tech space, customer acquisition cost is your biggest enemy.
Exactly. If I have to spend marketing dollars to convince you to open my ride-hailing app today, and then spend more dollars to get you to open my food delivery app tomorrow...
Your margins completely collapse.
Right. By bundling everything into one interface, Careem ensures that once you order a coffee through them, you are statistically far more likely to book your ride home through them as well.
But that brings up kind of a glaring contradiction, doesn't it? The sources note that Uber is operating in 70 countries, 15,000 cities, with over 200 million monthly active users globally.
It's a juggernaut.
It is. So if Careem has successfully built this inescapable, highly efficient digital ecosystem that local residents rely on for basically their daily survival, why is Uber still a massive player in Dubai?
That's the big question.
I look at this and think, Uber is surviving purely on tourist muscle memory. Like, they don't have the local integration Careem does.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of the user, particularly when we factor in those 16 million tourists. Careem is optimizing for local utility, but Uber is optimizing for cognitive relief.
Cognitive relief, I like that.
Yeah, think about it. When you land at Dubai International after a 14-hour flight, your brain is just depleted. You do not want to download a regional super app.
Oh, definitely not. Verifying phone numbers, authenticating emails.
Right, inputting a new credit card. It's too much friction. You want the app you have already trusted 100 times in your home country. Uber is essentially selling frictionless entry.
So the product isn't actually the car.
Exactly. The product is the complete lack of a learning curve.
I see that. But it's not just tourists, though. Our sources highlight this wild feature that Uber offers specifically in Dubai, which is Uber Copper.
Oh, yeah, the helicopter feature.
It's insane. You can literally open the standard Uber app and pre-book a helicopter taxi for aerial views over the Burj Khalifa and the Palm Jumeirah.
Which is quite the upgrade from an Uber X.
Right. Now, obviously, the average commuter is not taking a helicopter to their Tuesday morning staff meeting. So what is the mechanical purpose of integrating aviation into a ride-hailing app?
It seems strange at first glance.
To me, it just feels like a very expensive marketing gimmick.
Well, it essentially functions as a loss leader for brand positioning. Uber knows they're competing against Careem's daily utility, right?
Right.
By offering a helicopter, they elevate their platform from a mere logistical tool to a high-end luxury experience provider. It anchors the brand in the user's mind.
Okay, so even if you only ever book a standard sedan, seeing the option for a helicopter subtly communicates that you are operating within this premium high-status network.
Exactly. It perfectly matches the broader brand identity of Dubai itself.
So you have Careem locking down the residents with daily utility and Uber capturing the international arrivals with low friction and premium branding. That sounds like a pretty airtight duopoly.
It does. And in most markets, this is exactly where the local government steps in, right? They try to break it up or impose really heavy restrictions.
But the sources point out that Dubai took a completely different approach. They basically merged with it.
Yeah, and this is the most crucial layer of the ecosystem to dissect. Governments inherently struggle with software development.
Oh, for sure.
They move too slowly, their procurement cycles are way too long, and their user interfaces usually end up feeling like, digital tax forms.
Yeah, clunky and slow.
Right. But Dubai recognized that they had a regulatory mandate to provide safe, standardized public transport, but they just lacked the agility to build a world-class digital interface.
Which brings us to Hala. Launched back in 2019, Hala is a joint venture between the Roads and Transport Authority, the RTA, and Careem.
A true public-private synergy.
Exactly. And it is built directly into the Careem app. It offers the cheapest e-hail option in the city using regulated licensed taxis, and crucially, there is absolutely zero surge pricing.
Which is a huge draw for users.
Huge. And they have segmented it out nicely, too, with Hala Max for groups, Hala EV for eco-travel, and Hala Kids. So what does this all mean for the architecture of the market?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's practically a masterclass in solving the build versus buy dilemma in public infrastructure.
Right. The RTA completely bypassed the need to spend tens of millions of dollars developing and maintaining their own app.
Exactly. Instead, they essentially rented Careem's highly polished existing tech infrastructure. Careem gets exclusive access to this massive fleet of government-regulated vehicles, which bolsters their supply side.
And the government gets a flawless user experience while maintaining total control over safety vetting and fair regulation.
It's a win-win.
I look at the absence of surge pricing on Hala, and that feels like the ultimate weapon in this ecosystem. Like if it's pouring rain or it's 6 p.m. in the financial district, Careem and Uber's dynamic algorithms are obviously going to spike the price.
Oh, they'll spike it hard to balance supply and demand.
Right. But Hala's API is hard-coded to government meter rates. You are essentially using a private tech platform to completely bypass private tech economics.
Precisely. You are toggling between a dynamic free market pricing model and a regulated public utility pricing model, all within the exact same software interface.
And the integration goes even deeper than that. The official Dubai Taxi Corporation, or DTC, has their own smart app for standard and limo services.
Right.
But according to the guide, you can book those exact same DTC taxis on Careem, on a new platform called Bolt, and through the government's aggregator app, Sail.
Sail is a really interesting piece of this puzzle.
It is. I want to zero in on Sail because the metaphor I keep coming back to is almost like a personal financial portfolio manager, but for transit.
Or a mission control center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's taking a highly fragmented physical supply chain, traditional taxis, the tram, the bus, the metro, and even car-sharing apps like UDrive and eCar, and routing it all through a single demand pipe.
With live bus schedules and real-time traffic updates.
Right. So how does that change the game?
Well, Sail represents the concept of mobility as a service, or MaaS. The goal is to strip away the boundaries between different modes of transport. By making DTC vehicles interoperable across Careem, Bolt, and Sail, the government is ensuring they don't get trapped in a walled garden.
They're treating their vehicles as an open protocol.
Exactly. Whichever digital door you, the consumer, decide to walk through, the city's core infrastructure is just there waiting for you.
I follow the logic on the government side, but let's look at this from a pure business perspective. You have Uber dominating the global tourists. You have Careem locking in the residents with the super app.
Right.
You have the government enforcing baseline pricing and pooling all the supply through joint ventures. To an outsider, that looks like an impenetrable, highly hostile market.
The barriers to entry are astronomical.
Astronomical. Yet our sources list two relatively new disruptors actively trying to break in, Bolt and Yango. I look at Bolt's strategy, and I have to be honest, it looks like a company just setting venture capital money on fire.
You're referring to their aggressive market entry in late 2024.
Yes, they partnered with the Dubai Taxi Company to secure a fleet of over 6,000 vehicles immediately, which solves the supply problem, sure.
But the demand problem is harder.
Right. So to solve the demand problem, they just started undercutting everyone. They rolled out up to 30% cash back on initial rides.
Which is massive.
It is. But buying users with massive discounts is a classic Silicon Valley playbook, and it's a race to the bottom. The second the VC money dries up and prices normalize, what stops those users from reverting right back to their Careem super app?
Well, that is the inherent risk of buying market share, isn't it? Consumer loyalty in ride-hailing is famously brittle.
Very brittle.
It usually only extends as far as the next discount code. However, Bolt isn't just relying on cashbacks. The sources highlight a specific feature they introduced called Bolt School.
Which is pre-booked student transport, right?
Exactly.
Right. But how does a niche feature like school runs secure their survival against a giant like Uber?
It fundamentally changes their revenue mechanics. School runs provide guaranteed, predictable monthly recurring revenue, or MRR.
Oh, because they happen twice a day, 5 days a week?
Yes, for 9 months a year. By capturing the school transport market, Bolt locks in a baseline of guaranteed cash flow during off-peak daytime hours.
Oh, I see.
They are using that highly stable, predictable revenue to offset the cash they are burning on their 30% consumer discounts. It's a really calculated balancing act between aggressive growth and stable retention.
That actually completely shifts my perspective on it. But then we have the other disruptor, Yango, which is taking an entirely different angle.
Yeah, Yango is fascinating.
They aren't trying to brute force the market with capital. They're trying to out-engineer it. The guide specifically positions Yango as the choice for the smart commuter, focusing heavily on their proprietary AI-driven mapping.
Right.
Now, every app uses GPS and routing algorithms. What makes the Yango's mechanism fundamentally different from just, plugging an address into Google Maps?
Well, the key differentiator is really predictive modeling versus reactive modeling. Like your standard routing algorithms, they just look at current traffic conditions and draw a line.
Right, like standard GPS.
Exactly. But Yango's AI is analyzing historical data, current fleet positions, and micro-demand trends all at once.
Wow.
They are trying to predict where traffic bottlenecks and demand surges will be, 10 or 15 minutes in the future. They are optimizing pickup points and routing their supply side to intercept demand before the user even opens the app.
So it's the difference between navigating a maze and restructuring the walls of the maze in real time.
That's a great way to put it.
And they compound that algorithmic edge with a very specific user feature, which is multi-booking. Yango allows you to book several rides simultaneously from a single phone interface.
Which is incredibly useful for groups.
It really is. If you are a family of 6, or maybe a group of executives leaving a conference, you don't need 3 separate people downloading the app and trying to coordinate pickups. You organize a whole fleet from one screen with transparent upfront pricing to even bolt it on Yango Drive for car rentals.
And this is where we see the technological warfare actually benefit the consumer. In a market valued at over $1.2 billion, as the guide notes, slight margins of efficiency dictate survival.
Absolutely.
Yango is betting that its algorithmic routing saves you enough time, and its multi-booking saves you enough cognitive friction to win your loyalty without needing to offer 30% cashbacks.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We've mapped out the architecture. We know the players, the economic models, and the technological warfare happening on the back end. But how do you actually apply this to your daily commute?
Because having 8 apps on your phone is basically useless if you don't understand the behavioral mechanics of the city.
Exactly. The technology only works if you are willing to adapt your behavior to exploit the inefficiencies in the system. Let's talk about those inefficiencies. The golden rule from the sources is mastering timing to bypass the surge algorithms.
Timing is everything.
It is. We mentioned it briefly before, but the peak hours in Dubai are rigid. 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. If you open Careem or Uber during those windows, Their dynamic pricing models will absolutely hit you.
And hit you hard.
Right. So the behavioral hack is to override your default habit, open Careem, but manually select the HALA option to force the RTA-regulated meter rate.
You are essentially arbitraging market. You're using the private interface to access the public pricing structure at the exact moment the private pricing structure becomes hostile.
And the sources provide the baseline metrics so you know if you are actually getting a good deal. If you flag down a traditional street hail, the red roof DTC taxis, the meter starts at 5 dirhams during the day and 5.50 at night, plus distance.
Which is very reasonable.
Very reasonable.
A short downtown app trip averages around 12 to 25 dirhams.
Yeah.
And the long haul from the airport down to Jumeirah Beach residence runs about 55 to 80 dirhams.
But speaking of the airport, the physical infrastructure actually dictates the digital experience there.
Oh, yes. You cannot just call an Uber to the arrivals curb. Right. The physical environment had to be completely modified to handle the digital throughput. All terminals at Dubai International have dedicated geofenced app pickup zones. If you don't physically move to those specific zones, the app's routing algorithms literally cannot connect you with the driver.
It's a great example of the city forcing order onto the chaos of 16 million arrivals. Now, beyond just dodging surges and finding the right curb, the guide highlights how the technology adapts to specific demographics, too.
Oh, the ladies' taxi feature?
Yes. Dubai offers something called the Ladies' Taxi, which are pink taxis driven exclusively by female drivers, designed specifically for solo female travelers or families. You can access them through a DTC app or a hotline.
It's a really thoughtful inclusion.
I think it's a brilliant mechanism. They aren't forcing a rigid global Silicon Valley template onto the city, right? They're using the digital infrastructure to execute a culturally specific service.
And this raises an important question regarding user behavior and adaptation. We see the system adapting to cultural needs, but the user also has to adapt to the underlying financial mechanics of the ecosystem.
What do you mean?
Well, having the right app doesn't automatically protect you from legacy banking infrastructure.
Ah, the payment mechanism. Yes, this is where the guide drops a very subtle but crucial piece of advice. If you link an international credit card to Careem or Uber, it functions perfectly well on the surface.
But on the back end,
every single ride is pinging international payment gateways, which means you're getting hit with hidden currency conversion charges and cross-border interchange fees by your bank every time you ride.
death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. So the hack here is to link a local prepaid digital solution, like PayPal, directly to your taxi apps.
By utilizing a localized digital wallet, you are effectively creating a closed-loop microeconomy for your transit. You're bypassing the legacy banking toll roads entirely.
It seems like a minor behavioral tweak, doesn't it?
It does, but over the course of a week-long business trip or a month of daily commuting, avoiding those microtransactions represents significant capital retention.
So if you deploy these tactics, you arbitrage the pricing with HALA, you utilize multi-booking on Yango for groups, you bypass the banking fees with a localized digital wallet, you have effectively mastered the current Dubai transit ecosystem.
You're a power user.
Basically, yeah. But according to our sources, everything we just discussed is on the verge of total obsolescence.
It's true. The very definition of what constitutes a taxi in this market is fundamentally shifting.
The growth metrics point toward an entirely different operational paradigm. The guide projects the online taxi market in the UAE will hit approximately $433.78 million by 2030.
Operating at a 4.25% compound annual growth rate.
Right. And at first glance, a 4.25% CAGR sounds, well, relatively modest for a tech sector. But you have to contextualize that against a market that is already hypersaturated.
That future growth isn't coming from finding new humans to take rides.
No, it's coming from expanding profit margins by fundamentally changing the unit economics of the vehicles themselves.
Exactly. Because in April 2026, Baidu's Apollo Go launched the first driverless commercial ride-hailing service in Dubai. Driverless. And when you remove the human driver from the equation, transit ceases to be a labor cost and becomes a pure capital depreciation cost.
Wow.
You are no longer splitting a fare with a worker, you are simply amortizing the cost of the hardware over time.
Driverless fleets utilizing predictive AI to move supply around the city before demand even registers. It completely transforms the city from a collection of competing taxi companies into a unified, automated logistical network.
It's science fiction happening right now.
It really is. But buried right at the end of the source text, there was a casual mention of a platform that I found incredibly provocative. The guide notes that if you want to build your own ride-sharing app, You can utilize a white label software platform called Enatega.
The commoditization of the software layer?
Yes. Think about the implications of that for a second. We just spent this entire time analyzing the brutal economic warfare between titans like Uber and Careem and the billions of dollars required to build these ecosystems.
Right.
But if a platform like Enatega exists, it means the barrier to entry for the software has effectively collapsed to near zero.
It democratizes the infrastructure. If anyone can license the software architecture that runs a ride-hailing network, the competitive advantage is no longer the code itself.
What does it become?
The advantage becomes hyperlocalization and community trust.
Exactly. In a rapidly expanding market where driverless AI-routed fleets are simply the baseline expectation, maybe the future isn't about which of these 8 giant centralized apps you download.
Right. If the software is commoditized, what is to stop the complete decentralization of the transit network?
Will we start seeing micro-apps tailored to just a single neighborhood? Could a specific residential complex or a commercial district pool their resources, launch their own white-labeled app via Enatega, and manage their own localized fleet of autonomous pods?
Completely cutting out Uber and Careem entirely.
Yes. It suggests a future where mobility is less about giant corporate monopolies and more about highly targeted, community-driven logistical protocols.
It really makes you wonder who will actually own the streets in 10 years.
It does. Next time you step out of an airport and bypass the analog curb to look at your smartphone, you might not be choosing between global titans. You might be tapping into a micro-network built specifically for the 3-block radius you happen to be standing in.
The technology is already there. It's just waiting for someone to deploy it.
It really is. Something to mull over on your next commute. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next one.